Hi, and welcome to Shadows and Secrets Deep Dive Series. I am Kerry Savage.
And I am Samantha Skal. Together, we are Shadows and Secrets, a writing retreat for mystery and thriller authors.
Find out more on shadowsandsecrets.com.
Shadows and Secrets retreats.com. We always do this.
Oh my God.
It's fine. It's fine. Okay. So, we are both book coaches and authors, and we love talking about story. This is our series of deep spoiler alert, but we're going to have a lot of spoiler alerts throughout this entire thing. Deep dives into scary books we love, where we talk about twists, structure, masterful misdirection, villains, and anything else that strikes our fancy about MTS, which is the overarching genre term for mystery, thriller, and suspense. But first, I would like to introduce my co-founder of Shadows and Secrets, Kerry. So, Kerry, please tell the people about who you are and what you do.
Well, thanks, Sam. I am a writer and book coach, and I love working with writers to make their fictional ideas come to life. I am super into immersive settings and details that really pull you into your book's world. And now tell the people a little more about you, Sam.
Oh, thank you so much. I love working with mystery, thriller, and suspense authors to plan and write twisty novels, and I especially dig brainstorming twists and villains.
Amazing. Reminder again, we will be giving everything away, including key plot points here during this deep dive. So if you haven't read today's book, hit pause, go read it, and then come back.
Yeah, like seriously, we're going to ruin it. So please don't let us be the people who ruin these books because we adore every single book that we review on this channel. There's going to be no secrets unturned, so consider this your final spoiler alert warning. The structure of these talks is the same every time. We're going to read the book jacket copy and what the author has done to manipulate us before we even start.
And then we're going to read the first page and talk about what the author has done to manipulate us there.
And then we're going to break down each of the major twists in terms of how the author did it, what percentage of the way through it happened, and what on-screen clues existed so that the twist actually worked.
And then we'll also talk through how the author accomplished the overall misdirection and manipulation of the reader, and the way the author used language or setting or other elements to set the reader up for a maximum fear.
And this is why we read scary shit. We like to be scared by fiction.
Hell yeah. All right, are we ready?
We sure are. So today's book is The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins, and I'm going to hold up my version here. This is a delightful book. Fell in love from page one, and she did a lot of very masterful things in this. So I am going to read the book jacket copy right now, and then Kerry's going to read the first page. So the log line, which is they did a really good job with this, is there's nothing as good as the rich gone bad. So we immediately know this is about inheritance and people doing terrible things to each other, which sign me up. So here we go. When Ruby McTavish Callahan Woodward Miller Kenmore, long name, dies, she's not only North Carolina's richest woman, she's also the most notorious. The victim of a famous kidnapping as a child and a widow 4 times over, Ruby ruled the tiny town of Tavistock from Ashby House, her family's estate high in the Blue Ridge Mountains. But in the aftermath of her death, her adopted son Camden wants little to do with the house or the money, and even less to do with the surviving McTavishes. Instead, he rejects his inheritance, settling into a normal life as an English teacher in Colorado and marrying Jules, a woman just as eager as him to escape her own messy past. 10 years later, his uncle's death pulls Cam and Jules back into the family fold at Ashby House. Its views are just as stunning as ever, its rooms just as elegant, but the legacy of Ruby is inescapable. And as Ashby House tightens its grip on Jules and Camden, questions about the infamous heiress come to light. Was there any truth to the persistent rumors following her disappearance as a girl? What really happened to those 4 husbands who all died under mysterious circumstances? And why did she adopt Cam in the first place? Soon, Jules and Cam realize that an inheritance can entail far more than what's written in a will, and that the bonds of family stretch far beyond the grave. So, let's talk about that and what they have done to set us up. So, when Kerry's about to read the first page, when we'll talk about what the first page actually is, because there's like several different first pages in this book. But Jules is immediately the person who's drawing us in, and she starts off by talking to us from a standpoint that is interesting. It's from the standpoint of looking back at what's actually going on, and then she explains throughout the book how she is actually involved. But the way she's presented here, you think that she's just, she's not actually the protagonist, right? It seems like Cam's going to be the protagonist, and I would firmly posit that Jules is actually the person we care the most about in this story. So it's a very interesting choice that we see her as sort of a side character in this description on the book jacket copy. Do you agree with that?
Well, that's really interesting because that was going to be actually one of my questions for you is who do
Yeah.
you think the protagonist is? Is it Jules or is it Cam? Because I think we are set up to think, well, and especially, all right, true confession I have to make right now. I don't generally read book jacket copy before I read a book.
Ooh,
You know, like a lot of things, like people recommend things to me. Like you recommended this book, and
yeah.
said, "Oh, we should do a deep dive on it. It's amazing." And I was like, "Great, that's all I need to know is that Sam says this is a good book. I'm in. I will read it." So I did not realize that the way this was sort of pitched was that Jules is like that. Cam is the protagonist, and throughout the
Mhm.
book, because it goes back and forth in the non-epistolary pieces of it. It goes back and forth between Jules's POV and Cam's POV. So I was
Yeah.
thinking as I'm reading it, and then as I was reviewing it again to talk about this, who's the protagonist here? It was a similar question to the last Mrs. Parrish, like who actually is the protagonist? So I think I agree with you that Jules is, but I definitely had that question about, well, Cam's pretty prominent, and
Hugely
everything
prominent.
goes through. I think it actually relates. The ultimate question relates to a very final twist, which we can talk about now, or we can get to later. That's
Yeah.
where you find the pendulum finally swings to that answer.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's keep that, put a pin in that and we'll come
Put a
back
pin
to
in
it.
that one.
So yeah, do you want to read the first pages now?
I will read the first. So, as Sam mentioned, the first few pages of this book, there's epistolary pieces throughout. So there's letters and there's articles and different things that she weaves in and out of the character POV sections, which is just really skillfully done. I think they do a lot of work, as they should, and they do it here in moving the story forward and giving you just a ton of information, and in a very compact and economical way.
Yes.
And so when you're kicking me off this way, what it's telling me is like there's going to be more of this, which yay, I love a good epistolary novel or pieces of it. But also you're setting reader expectations right off the bat, right? Same thing with book jacket copy. But so I will read the first one of these, and we can decide if we want to go further or not.
Okay.
But it would probably shock the average American to learn just how little we know about those who go missing in the wilder parts of this great nation of ours. A tangled knot of jurisdictions and separate government agencies means that there is no singular place to collect that data, no easily searched resource that tells us just how many of our fellow citizens vanish into the thick forests of the Appalachians, the cold, stony reaches of the Rocky Mountains, the dense mists of the Pacific Northwest. And when someone is swallowed up by these elemental places, our brains struggle with the sheer vastness of both the land itself and the overwhelming myriad of possibilities. Did they vanish on purpose, seeking some kind of freedom from our plugged in, switched on existence? Was it an accident? If so, what kind? After all, there are so many things that can kill you once you've left well traveled paths. Something as simple as a broken shoelace can lead to a stumble, which becomes a fall, hands scrabbling over slippery rock. Wild animals are not the lovable cartoons we grew up with, but genuine threats. Did the missing person meet up with one, finding themselves plunged into a primal nightmare of becoming a food source? And of course, we can never discount that most dangerous of animals, our fellow man. Lord Byron wrote, "There is a pleasure in the pathless woods, there is a rapture on the lonely shore, there is society where none intrudes, by the deep sea, the music in its roar." But we know all too well that sometimes society does indeed intrude, and we picture the lonely hiker, their excitement at seeing another human slowly curling into terror as they realize that this is not a friend, not a fellow seeker of peace and tranquility. This is why these stories have such a hold on us. So many questions, too many possibilities, and the reminder that the woods may be dark and deep, but what can happen to you inside them is often far from lovely. It's
Mm,
attributed to Without a Trace by Bill Narracott in Outside magazine, I assume,
yeah,
May 2017.
love that magazine.
Absolutely,
What beautiful writing. Okay, so
truly.
having finished this book, right, and knowing what all the spoilers are, and again, we're about to spoil it, so
Yep.
you know, fair warning. Ruby is a serial killer. Like
Mm,
she serial kills all her husbands. There are four of them, and all of them die. And so to me, that's the hint about, all is not what it seems about the forest, right? Like we have this view of the outside as being this like loving thing, but it's also quite dangerous, but nothing is really as dangerous as what a human can do to another human. Um, and so it's a very subtle hint about what's to come. And you don't think about that at this juncture. Just like this whole book, part of the reason I love it so much is she does this masterful job of misdirecting us
Mhm.
using these characters, right? So we meet Jules in, her first chapter, and it's written to the reader. It's like, well, I should probably tell you this before we go off into this other thing. And so
Mhm.
you have this immediate voice. We're on her side. We're very curious about how she's involved in everything. And she doesn't quite lie to us, but she also doesn't tell us the whole truth, which I think was very masterfully done. I went back and looked as because we learned that Jules, it was no mistake that she met Cam the
Nope.
night that she met him. She didn't plan to meet him in that bar, but she was on the lookout for him. The whole thing was a complete setup, and she's kind of our like underground mastermind villain. Well, Ruby was too, but like between all of this, right? And we learned that Ruby died around the same time that Jules meets Cam. And it all kind of comes together in the end, which is another reason I love this. It's just like so satisfying to have it all just wrapped up. Um, but when we open the book, we don't think about any of this. Like if I read that and if I look back to when I was first read this book and didn't know what it was going to be about, thinking about the forest and the animals, I'm like, okay, is this going to be something about where someone gets lost in the woods and gets eaten by a bear or something? Or like, is someone going to leave someone in the woods? And there is a tiny subplot with that, but it's not at all like she's misdirecting us already, right?
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you a little bit though and say
Okay.
it's a little bit more than a tiny subplot
Well, okay,
because
yeah, she kills off somebody in the woods and makes it.
oh, that's not even what I was
Oh,
talking.
what were you gonna say? Okay, tell me.
So what the very and it relates to the very next page, which is another little article from September 1943 in the Atlanta Constitution, where we
Uh-huh.
find out that Ruby has gone missing in the woods.
Aha, yes, okay.
And
Yeah.
so, like, what I think she's setting up there and also misdirecting us so well because we're dropped right into this thing in the next page is we think everything with the woods and everything is just all about her disappearance. And then as we find out later, her
Oh.
reappearance 8 months later, should I spoil this bit and
Yeah,
say, well,
absolutely.
as we find out, Ruby is not Ruby. The girl Ruby who went missing in the woods and then is later found, she wasn't found. It wasn't Ruby. They actually like paid off a family to take their child basically and plant her in Ruby's life because she was 3 at the time that she went missing. To plant her in this life and say, okay, now yes, you're Ruby. So I think, and that whole disappearance storyline is like that's where I thought you were like
Oh,
uh,
interesting. Yeah,
looking at
you're
that as
so
like a
you're
minor subplot, and I'm like, no, Sam, it's way more than a minor subplot.
I was thinking of a different subplot, but you're so right. That's exactly, that's exactly what she was going for, I think. I took it to a different place, but
Which is this is why we talk about these things because I think
yeah,
I'll read it a little bit differently too, and like we bring more stuff to the table, and it's fascinating.
it is
I
fascinating.
think we have all heard authors say, and or you and I definitely have heard it in different panels and things, talking about when they listen to readers or read about readers interpreting their work, and sometimes it's like, oh yes, amazing, you got what I was trying to do there, and then other times they'll come up with like, well, I thought all of this, and I saw this and this, and you're like, yeah, definitely that's what I was going for. And then they were like, no, I had no idea I was that smart and I did something really cool that I didn't need to. And you know what? It doesn't matter
Doesn't
because
matter.
what matters is that the reader took this away from it. So that's the whole point. So anyway,
Yeah. All right.
um,
Do you want to go on to the next page about the changeling?
do you
Because
want me
we,
to read it or do you
yeah.
want to just talk through it a little bit?
I mean, let's give it like a little description so that we have
Okay.
context.
Okay, well, we talked about the next page, that second page was the lumber baron's baby girl vanishes, search on foot by air underway. And
Right.
it's an Associated Press report that basically talks about how Ruby has gone missing. The family was going out for a picnic. The mother thought that she was with the nanny thought she was with the mother. And I bring that up because it is important.
Yes.
Um, and then, but she's gone, right? So, and they're saying like this dense woods, who knows what happened? She's probably been eaten or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we move on. And the third page, before we get to any like character POV stuff, gives us a definition of changeling. So changeling, noun, and definition, a child put in place of another child. In folklore, various magical beings, witches, fairies, and trolls, are often responsible for the switch. And then some related links, and it just says Internet Commons entry for changeling access on October of
Yeah.
2020. So I had a question for you about this because I thought it was fascinating. Clearly, a child put in place of another child, completely related to what is happening here.
Yeah.
Um, but I had a moment with this, honestly, because I've read a lot of other paranormal kinds of things and witchy things, and I love them. And also it's right there in the definition where it hints at this paranormal, like witches, fairies, trolls. And I was like, huh, is this going to be like, are there going to be paranormal elements to this? And as you continue to read, you know that there isn't. And so it's not like I felt like she ever cheated me of an expectation at this point,
Hmm.
but I did think it was a really interesting choice to like put that piece of it in there. So I wanted to know what you thought of it too.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I had the same reaction when I saw the folklore bit. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, so what's really going to be happening here? Because we're set up to expect that Ruby is not Ruby throughout the entire book with that definition, right?
Yeah,
Especially on the tales of her going missing as a child. Like that's established.
yeah.
And it turns out that that's the truth, but I also think that Rachel Hawkins did a very clever thing with setting that up so close to the front that the reader's then like, well, you're messing with me. And so I actually think that Ruby is going to be Ruby. And it's like the reverse, like
Yep.
we think it's going to be this. So actually it's going to be this. And then the fact that it becomes the first thing is actually a little twisty because
Yeah.
we expect the opposite.
Mhm.
And in terms of the supernatural, it's a choice, right? Like, because you're right, the any random reader would expect there to be potentially some paranormal stuff in there, but I actually really liked it because
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not saying that you didn't like it, but like I personally liked it
I hated
because
it. No, I didn't. I didn't hate it.
it made me a little like there's a little low key suspense about is everything as it seems, which is actually maybe why she did it
Oh, that's a great point.
because it's like you're injecting into the narrative and the reader's mind like, hey, take a look at things because everything that I'm telling you may or may not be true. And that's what I think about like supernatural and paranormal is like, we have what we have around us in reality, and then there's other things that we maybe can't see. And
Mhm.
I'm just positing, Rachel Hawkins, if you see this and you want to refute us, please let us know. But I think that's a very genius way to inject that like low key, very subtle, just like, hey, reader, take a look at everything around you.
Yeah.
But it's not, you're using the supernatural, but not to actually have a supernatural element. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yes. Yeah. Totally. And I think the other thing that, I mean, a few things, I guess, like with the book jacket copy, like that's where said, right, it comes out that I didn't read it. But I think if it were paranormal, you'd want to set that expectation there. And then if you read this, if there was something in the book jacket copy and you read this, and then you continued to read and there was nothing, then I feel like you would have punctured your expectations because the
Yes.
copy is supposed to tell you, sort of set you up for what you're gonna
Yeah.
be reading. There was nothing in the book jacket copy about that.
Yeah.
So that should and could and definitely is a clue that it's leaning more towards the way that you were taking it, which I love. Um, but the other thing that I think that where it does fit in, and this might just be me and how I read and how my brain works and everything, is that what I did take away from it was there was a very gothic element
Oh, hugely
to the
gothic.
whole
Yeah.
story, right? And I think that change, like just the idea of a changeling, fits very nicely into the whole like sort of overall gothic vibe and all the
Yeah.
tropes around that and everything. So in that way, it fits amazingly well. I just kind of probably dug a little deeper into the paranormal stuff for all kinds of reasons and all
Yeah.
good reasons. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Oh, yeah. The gothic thing. I've that's an element that I love having a part of being any book. And it's not, I mean, Ashby House is definitely a gothic mansion, right? Like no question. But it's not quite as in your face as some other gothic novels that we both have read, right? So it's a creepy house, some stuff has happened there, and it eventually burns to the ground, which is, how else do you exorcise your demons? Not burns to the ground, but like part of it burns, right? But there's just a lot of I think she uses that as to put it in your head about like, okay, some bad stuff's going to happen here. So again, low level suspense the whole time. You're like, what's going to happen? Who's going to die? Like, what's, yeah.
Well, and not going as a really good point too about like as you were just saying about not going full blown into gothic. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely all those clues there and those moments that we're used to, but not like the house is sort of falling apart, and that's part of what gets Cam to come back there. But it's not completely decaying, and there aren't
Right.
like was reaching out of the closet to grab them. And there's sort of like this whole like stuck family dynamic, but
Yeah.
there is also still like this lovely housekeeper who's making his favorite childhood foods and things like that. Like there are pieces of it that are absolutely not gothic, and the lovely town. And did you not like love this poor town
I
where
know.
it's they're raising rents and the things are closing, but there's this lovely gazebo that's dedicated to the second husband that she murdered.
Uh-huh.
It
Uh-huh.
had this note, so genius of Rachel Hawkins, that the second husband dies because she deliberately sends him into the barn where she's like, I didn't necessarily know he was going to get electrocuted, but I figured the chances were pretty good, and hey, fate was on my side. She sent him into this barn to like string up some lights and make it fancy so they could have a party out there. So what happens after he dies? She builds a gazebo where people have weddings and parties, and there's these beautiful fairy lights that are strung up in the gazebo with the plaque that's dedicated to the dead husband. I was like, oh, Rachel Hawkins, that is really good. Well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Ruby's such an interesting character because like, we learn about her through these letters, and I would love to dive into that if
Let's
we're
do
ready.
it. Yeah.
So we're presented with Ruby's truth and what she's actually been doing, and she's very upfront about what she's done, right? She's like, yep, killed husband number one, and then here's husband number two, here's what actually happened. Here's husband three, and we'll go into all of that because I think, it's clever. But there's no guilt. There's no like, she's
Yeah.
just truly like, yep, I did these things and I'm fine with it, which is psychopathic, right? Like, that's fine.
Entirely. Entirely.
Yeah.
I
And
think
the first one was a nightmare, but the rest were not as.
well, and I think, it was so good because we have a lot of sympathy for her when she kills the first
Totally.
one. He's a
Yes.
total asshole. He's beating her.
Yeah.
And, the night that she kills him, he comes in with a gun and he's pointing the gun at her, being like, well, people put the heads of deers that they kill on the wall. What do you do with your first wife? And it's like, I mean, I would be out of my mind with fear as well.
Yeah.
So when she has her opening, she takes it. And I don't think any of us are like, I
No one
can't
blames her
believe
for
you
that.
did that. Like, no,
Yeah.
we're all just like, yeah, you go. Like, get rid of that asshole. But, you know, getting away with it there is sort of, and it's interesting how she played with Ruby herself in the letters. And so Rachel, through Ruby writing the letters, is playing with this nature nurture thing too, of
Yeah.
like, this is how maybe I was questioning whether I actually was a McTavish or not, because I don't think any of them were like murderous. And I certainly discovered that I was just fine
Just fine with doing this.
nudging people off to their demises, and well, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I was just re-looking at, like, literally right before we started talking about how, the third husband she really loved.
She loved him.
And
No. And then she
she
told him, and
poisoned
he,
him to death. And she's just like, I don't know. I don't know. It
yeah.
was
So
really
for the readers, like husband number one was a terrible asshole who beat her. And so to your point, we're on her side immediately about that. That was self-defense. It was like, if someone's putting a gun at you, you do the thing, right?
at some point we
Fine.
knew he was going to kill her if she
Yeah,
didn't kill
it was very
her.
clear. And so I think maybe what we're exploring with Ruby is like what happens to a normal person put in a terrible situation, and what if they take the other path? What if they're not like, oh, that was a one-time thing and I feel like that was justified, but also like, whoa, instead she goes and she marries husband number two, who turns out to just not be for her, right? Like he wasn't bad, he wasn't good, he just was just not great for her.
He was
And so
overly doting.
overly
that
doting.
was
And
that was her problem. He was
yeah,
overly doting and boring.
yeah. Right. So then we're entering into full-blown murder, right?
Mhm.
And even though you brought up the whole thing about like the string lights and him maybe getting electrocuted, that's what I thought was going to happen. Like it's premeditated.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
she plays it off as like, I left it to fate, and fate like was on my side. It's like,
Right.
mm.
Yeah, yeah. And then husband number three is this lovely painter. She actually loves him. And she feels comfortable enough with him to tell him about what she's proud of, which is that she defended herself against husband one and then didn't like husband two, but like, look what I got away with, basically, is how I interpreted it. And he is absolutely horrified and starts to back away from her. And so she kills him slowly over the course of a year with ant poison because she couldn't bring herself to like be violent about it. And then husband number four, the way that we learn, so the letters actually are interesting in length as well. So husband number four, we learn about the murder. She was like, yeah, I never should have married him. I killed him. When I pushed him into the water, it was like, I should have done it sooner, was the thought. I'm paraphrasing. Number one is like, I don't know, I'm making this up, like 10 pages of letter, and we learn about the death over the course of 2 letters. The second husband, it's over the course of, I think, 1 letter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a
Ah,
shorter length of
I think
time.
you're right. Yeah.
Husband number three, it's 1 letter, and then husband number four, it's like a paragraph. And it's like it got easier for her over time. But the way these letters are written, we sort of assume that they're written to Cam because it's sort of a
Yes.
motherly tone, and it's like I'm admitting my crimes, and we know Ruby's dead from the start of this story. She
Yeah, and
died.
she has these lovely elements within them, like when she's talking about sex, she's like, "Oh, you
Hmm.
don't want to hear about that," or something about. There was some other point where she sort of alludes to like a motherly tone to them, and so of course
Yeah,
I assume that it's Sam because, or sorry, Cam, because it is written in that like I am telling you, my son, I'm
yeah,
leaving this legacy, this story. I'm telling you really about who I am.
yeah. It's great. And I have the percentage about when we realize that and at 77%, Ruby's letter ends with, I can't wait for you to meet him. And the immediate next chapter is Jules talking to Cam and showing him these letters, because we then learn that Jules is the one who found these letters, found, and is showing them to Cam. And she's like, I thought that they were to you, but they weren't. And I think that's in Cam's POV. So it's okay that, right, like we're not hearing a lie from,
I think that's right. Yeah.
yeah, I think I
Yeah,
can't.
I probably would have had a note that was, like, oh, wait a minute. And I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of lying going on even at that point, but we that's a twist in of itself because we made the assumption that Cam was the one receiving the letters. He wasn't. And so we're like, wait, who was Ruby talking to? And why did where were these letters and what was going on? At 86%, Jules admits to us that she found Ruby's letters and she was the one receiving them this whole time. And then as we get into like the 94% mark, like the letter, there's a letter to Ruby from Jules explaining how she was looking for Cam and she found him. And the way it's set up in the very beginning of the story, like chapter 1 in Jules' POV, is like, oh, this beautiful man, like I've never felt more perfect for anyone in my life. Like you wouldn't expect that you'd meet the love of your life in a 25-cent chicken wing night, and all of that is true. But what's missing is that she was looking for him and she knew about him from the very beginning, as opposed to, and she has little drops of secrets in her POV where it's like, oh, I should tell him. I should tell him before he finds out. But
Yeah.
the reader never finds out what that is until Rachel Hawkins is ready for the reader to find out about it. It was all very masterfully done, and I was very impressed with how she did that, because it's very difficult to have a POV character have a secret like that and keep that secret from the reader. And
And
it
have
no,
them not be resentful about it or
yeah,
feel like the misdirection was cheating in a way. I think
yes,
definitely made that note about like, well, this could have gone really sideways. Like I could have felt really angry about her keeping secrets from me.
mm-hmm.
And she's not shy about letting us know that she's keeping secrets, but the way she unfurled it, it was like, oh no, that felt earned, and yet I'm not angry or feeling like you cheated on me or cheated
Yeah,
me.
yeah, totally. It was very well done. And that's why I think that Jules is the protagonist, but she's also, she's not really the villain. There's actually a moment, I think around 50%, where she says to the reader, like, oh, reader, I'm not now, and it's like your heroine has switched to the villain.
Oh
And
yeah, yes, she does.
and so we start to see like, okay, so you're not all everything that you seem. And then we're sort of on Cam's side and we're like, well, how is she messing with him? And then we learn at the end that Cam knew about this the entire time and hasn't told Jules that he knows. And so the
Mhm.
two of them have been keeping these huge secrets, but they love each other anyway. And it's like loving the darkest part of the person that you've chosen to be with in your life. Like it's actually really nice, even with all this like really messed up stuff that they're doing to each other and all the lies and everything. It's all sort of, like Jules admits several times the reason she's lied to Cam and the reason that she tried to go meet him. We eventually find out Jules' real identity is she's the granddaughter of the girl that was swapped with Ruby, right?
Yeah, so the woman we know as Ruby was swapped when or stolen, or bought, whatever, however you want to put it,
Hmm.
from this family. Jules is the granddaughter of that baby who was taken away, bought back in the day. So yeah.
Right, right. And so Jules is related to the family, and this all works because Camden was adopted. So we're not dealing with any incest situation here, which is skillfully
Well,
done
and
as
also she
well.
was stolen. So like they're actually neither one of them is a McTavish, which is an
Right,
interesting choice, right?
right. Yeah.
They're not at all
Um,
related. So
not at all
yeah.
related, but there's family really like external, like the scope of the whole thing is like it kind of seems like they might be related, but they're not. And so that's how she ended up connected with Ruby, because after her grandmother died, she found Ruby's card and it listed the initials of what Ruby had done, which Ruby did on purpose to give the person that she was swapped with a chance to like own her, right? To like be like, yes, this happened and I can't do anything about it, but now we're equal.
Yeah.
Um, and so we learn at the very, very end that Jules has been working with Ruby this entire time, and that this whole story was about Jules getting Cam what he deserves from his inheritance. And even though it's not technically his inheritance because Ruby was never actually a McTavish, et cetera, right? And hence the heiress.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it was all very, very, very clever.
It was.
So let's talk about Cam and
Okay.
how his POV uh misdirects us as well. So we understand from all of his POV that he's like really not into this family. He hates it.
Mhm.
What did you think when you first started reading his, because they're Jules and Cam are both just like, oh, we love each other and like, yeah, we're gonna go deal with this thing. But he's like, there's no way I'm taking her into this house. I know how bad it is. And we're like, what are you scared of? You
Well,
know?
here's a delightful thing about that also came from like now I'm really realizing I need to read the book jacket copy on these things. So because I didn't read the book jacket copy and I just went into it, I didn't realize until well, it was I mean it's early on, so it wasn't like it was a huge thing, but I didn't realize at first like they're living in this rented house. He's working as a teacher in a private school. She's working in one of those historical like recreation places, and she was like, you know what they're like even if you don't know this one, and I was like, oh yes I do, which was very funny. But I didn't realize, so it took me a minute to understand what he had walked away from and was keeping himself away from. And I think that that's just such an interesting way of setting all of this up, because how many of us, and Jules asked us this question at some point of like, would you walk away from tens of millions of dollars? Like, so it's sort of, I think, calling out and pointing to why what she's playing with us throughout. Rachel Hawkins is, I mean, she's playing with us because we're not really sure until the very end. Sorry, the weather is getting a little crazy here. Which is why I look ghostly lit now. Um, whether does Jules really love him or does she love him for his money? And as we find
Yes.
out, she she's not complaining about the money, but she lived with him for 10 years in this rented house, getting dressed up in a fucking bonnet, as she puts it, and going to work churning butter every day, having to explain to prepubescent boys about churning butter. So um, there are moments along the way that she talks about, I want the money, or I want this money for him, and like he's earned this. So there are those moments where you're like, is she just in it for the money and she's just playing a really, really long game? But it also just says a lot. Sorry, circling back to Cam,
Yeah.
you originally asked me, it says a lot about him, I think, as a character, that he would walk away from this knowing how toxic it was and knowing how awful this family is, but Ruby knew how to drag him back in. And even there, when he's back in, we just see him over and over being a good person, being the
Mm-hmm.
person who's trying to right the wrongs of all of this. And I think it comes out somewhere at the very end where Ruby's like, I could see this in you from the get-go, and this is why I chose you, because I
Yeah.
knew you would be the person who would fix all of this,
Yes.
that would make this what it needed to be.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that summed up Cam really well, I think. And
Yeah.
also, I was also very satisfied at the end that despite the fact that Cam and Jules have been lying to each other this whole time, it wasn't the kind of lies that were like, I am, and well, I was going to say, they're not the kind of lies that they're manipulating each other. They were, but it wasn't malevolent. It wasn't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
evil or like they're ultimately, no, she burns the house down with Ben and Livy in it. Like you still kind of come away from it being like, oh, they're so sweet.
I
They're lovable.
know, and you're like, you did horrible things. And then, we find out that Cam murdered Ruby after Ruby admitted to what she had done. And so this is circling back to the beginning, the putting a pin in it
Yeah,
about where
yeah.
I thought you were going with the forest thing is that in
Yeah.
Cam's recollection, which is like in the climactic, we're getting into the climactic area, and we'll break down the twist in just a minute. But well, at 82%, Cam admits he killed Ruby, and we have a flashback to that night where he admits that he knows that she took pills because she was trying to make it easy for him. It was like, hey, I'm going to die, you're going to inherit, basically. But at that point, he realizes all the strings she has pulled. So there was a kid who beat him up, and that kid is dead now. Like he's the one that got lost in the woods, and there's a warning from, like a car mechanic or something. I can't remember the character, what he does, but at like 42%, Camden gets a warning from this man about like, I would sleep with one eye open if I were you. And I think that kind of stuff, it just like, it's low key suspense and it's building. And so we understand that we are barreling toward a very negative outcome for all these people, right? And we don't know who we can trust. And, well, I guess I'll get into the twist right now. Like at exactly 50%, and this just like warms my heart when the percentages work out. It was like so satisfying to look and be like, oh my God, this is the midpoint. So Ben, one of the other characters, one of the McTavishes, who's like an antagonist to Cam and to Jules, he confronts Jules and says, I got him here now, Mrs. McTavish. When are you going to do your part? And that's when we learn that it's just our entire viewpoint of what we've thought up to that point has been changed. So it's not necessarily a like you can't go back moment for Jules. Like she and Cam could walk away at that point. Nothing really has happened. But for the reader, we're understanding that like everything we've thought about Jules is wrong. And then if recollection is accurate, the very next chapter is Jules being like, you didn't realize that I was a villain, did you? To the reader. Like she's talking to the reader this whole time, whereas Cam is more of a traditional POV, like experiencing the story, yeah, it was
Yeah,
great.
actually, like stepping away from the twist for a second, but it is related. I wanted to ask you, she does do this thing with Jules, which is unusual and can sometimes fail miserably. She
Yeah.
did not fail miserably
No,
in
it
this
worked
case.
so
It actually
well.
worked really, really well. But breaking the fourth wall and addressing the,
Yeah.
why do you think, like, for me, all right, I'll come out and say that, and then I want to hear what you think too. Of like,
Yeah.
I think it's part of what makes us really still be rooting for Jules and not dislike her, even though she sort of misled us and not been entirely truthful with us, and ultimately doesn't make all the best decisions and turn out to be like the best person. I will say when she like sets the house on fire that Ben was trying to kill her.
Ben
So
was trying to kill her. So when she kills him with a fire poker,
yep,
she has a moment where she's like, oh, maybe, this is Ruby's legacy because this is exactly what Ruby would have done,
yep, yep.
And Libby, the other cousin, ends up dying in the fire because smoke inhalation or something. That was
Yeah,
just
I think
like,
so.
yeah, it was a
She took too many
casualty.
drugs and didn't wake up. So
Right. Right.
sorry, I
So
don't mean to make light of that, but she was also not a great person.
not a
Uh,
great person. No.
so
She was kind of, body count in this book is high, right? Given how many characters there are. And so
mhm.
it was interesting to see that we kill off actually everyone else in the book except for Jules and Cam, and the housekeeper, right, survives.
Yes, thanks.
Um,
choose the nice one. So
Yeah, yeah. And so another bold choice, right? It's like you have Jules, but in a position where she's committed 2 murders to get this thing for Cam because she loves him so much. And she's so real and human about being like, yeah, this is amazing. I love living in this house. I want
mhm.
this for us. I'm Mrs. McTavish, and like, look what we have accomplished, even though none of us are actually who we say we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, we like her, to your point. We like her, even though she's done these horrible things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to build sometimes to build a character to directly address the reader, because I think if you go overboard with it, or you do it in a particular way, and I'm trying to think of a better, more concrete way of saying that, but like there are times it can go so horribly wrong, like it sort of gets can be obnoxious, or like
Yeah.
playing with us or something. But in this, it's just because the rest of her voice, I think, is so like kind of warm and relatable, and she doesn't take herself too seriously.
Yeah.
She loves her husband. So there's like a lot of things that make Jewel really likable, lovable. And so when she's chatting with us and being, it almost feels like you're having a conversation with her, and you're
Hmm.
talking to someone who you might consider a friend if you were to meet her for coffee or something. Like she seems fun and nice, and not like a bad person.
Yeah. Well, and we understand, I mean, I think part of what works, and, Carrie, I know you and I both coach this quite a bit, but it's like we understand her motivations. We understand why she's making the decisions she's making. And so it's not, from the outside, if we just saw like woman marries man and then forces him to go back to this traumatic childhood home because she wants the money. That's how it would have been perceived if we hadn't been in Jules' head. And
Yeah.
so it works, right? It's one of those things where like, would I recommend somebody break the fourth wall in a thriller? Probably not. But it's one of those things where like it works with this, and it works beautifully. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the reason it works is because it endears us to this person that we otherwise wouldn't really have liked, because she is a villain. She is
Yeah.
the one. She's been pulling the strings this whole time, along with Ruby. And that's
Yeah,
not
and she does do some things that, we question along the way. Even when we sort of understand her motivations, it doesn't mean that we necessarily would agree with them.
yeah.
Uh, because there is a wide swath of the book where we're like, all right, how much is she messing with us right now? And
Yes.
to the greater degree, how much is she messing with Cam? Because I
Yeah.
think we all sort of uniformly, I'm trying to think of, are there moments where like Cam as a character, I was like, oh, I don't know. But I think he's pretty
He's
evenly a
pretty,
good
yeah,
guy.
he also was very torn up about the fact that he killed, right. So in the climactic moment at 82%, um he doesn't call 911 after Ruby has taken these pills. He
Right.
watches her die, and he has the phone in his hand. He could have saved her, and he makes the choice not to, because he is killing someone that he believes deserves it. I thought that's what I took away from it. It's like, this woman raised me and gave me everything, and wants me to right the wrongs, and this is me righting a wrong. It's like removing her from society. But
Well, and
what
for
a
better or worse,
terrible.
I got, or right or wrongly, I got something of a vibe from her, from Ruby, of like, I don't know that she's regretful of all the things that she's done, but I
Mhm.
think there was a piece of her that was like ready to go. Like
Yeah,
she's right. She's brought Cam and Jules together, or
yeah,
she's done everything that she can, and she's done all of these things. She's written these letters. She's ready to be done, and so that's why I
yeah.
guess either that, or I just don't hate all murderers. I can't believe I just said that. Why do I have sympathy? That's terrible.
I know. But
What's
this
wrong
is
with
what's so interesting about this book. It's like, and there's so many other thrillers, and, particularly psychological thrillers out there. Like The Last Mrs. Parrish was another one. Like, we're kind of on those characters' sides, even as they're doing like fairly awful things. And it's because we understand their motivations and we relate to them.
Yeah.
Like, would I make the same choices? I don't know. I hope to never be put in that situation.
Right, right.
But this is why we read fiction, and this is why we want to be in people's heads. And this is the feedback that I give my clients constantly. Is like, let me in their head, tell me what they're thinking, like, let me understand how they're feeling about this and what it means to them. And so that moment in this, when Cam is remembering what that felt like to hold the phone and watch his mother die, and he could have saved her and he's choosing not to, like, it's not actually like an aha moment, because this all happened in the past, which is another thing I want to talk about, because the structure of this is very interesting.
Mhm.
um because we don't really have any sort of, like, Jules does not have an aha moment. It's more that she's choosing to reveal And her emotional arc is basically there's not really much of an arc, right? She sets out to get what she wants in the beginning and she gets it.
Yep.
And so, you know,
Which, what we would normally tell our clients is as a since if we're going to agree that she is the protagonist, and I think I had that moment where when it's revealed that Ruby is writing the letters to her, yes, that is the moment where like, okay, that's our protagonist. We would normally say she has to change somehow.
yeah. I mean,
And
she does to an extent. She makes the choice to kill Ben and Libby in the house fire, which is a choice.
yes, I guess it's a
It's a-
choice that she makes. Yeah, I don't know if I like the Jules that I met at the very beginning. Maybe she wouldn't have done it. But again, like I think that some of that is mitigated by the fact that Ben was like, if she hadn't killed Ben, he was going to kill her. So
yeah,
that was a very like,
yeah. It's also
I forgot
interesting,
choice.
like the narrative viewpoint of Jules is different than everybody else's.
Yes.
And so she we're hearing the story from her perspective of like, oh, but first we have to go back to the beginning, kind of. It's like that sort of Disney movie thing where it's like once upon a time, and now we're going to figure out what actually happened, and then we come back to full circle at the end. And the
Yep.
epilogue, 8 months later, she's pregnant, she has this baby, or sorry, she has the baby, or is she just pregnant? I can't remember.
I think she's 8 months pregnant.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yes. And we learned that Libby died in the fire. We learned what Jules did to Ben, and she's happy. She has what she wants. So her story goal is achieved. And it's almost like this isn't explicitly stated, but it's almost as if that's the moment when the story, like when she's looking back and we hear her first chapter, that's when that started. It's like, okay, well, here we are. Here's how this story went down.
Yep. Yeah. It's
Um,
the full circle moment. So you get that satisfying, like, oh, okay, it's all, like you said, all tied together.
Yeah, yeah. But the climactic twist is interesting. The climactic scene is interesting because it's not like I just said, like the reveal of what Ben did, that is all in the past. So it's not happening in story present. At 86%, Jules admits that she found Ruby's letters. And then at 88%, we find out that Ben killed Nell, the sister of Ruby, like the non-bio sister. And we hear that
Parallel.
Jules, yeah.
Right?
Sorry, say that again.
Nice parallel with Ruby's death
Yes,
and Sam.
exactly. And we have these, like this question of like, what if he finds out, that's from Jules, like she's worried about what Cam's going to find out. And then we find out that Cam, in the very next chapter, that Cam knew about this the entire time. And so the climactic scene is really like not a traditional climactic scene. We don't have our protagonist sitting there and being like, oh my God, everything I thought about this story or myself or, facing up against that misbelief. And now I'm going to go conquer the villain, because she is the villain. She is the one behind this. And like Ben's kind of the false villain. He's the one who really wants the inheritance. And so he's going to die and that's fine. And so it's interesting what she did. Like it shouldn't work, but it does. And so this is one of these lessons. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this book as a deep dive is like, I coach this all the time where it's like, okay, aha moment, like climactic scene, chaos to order. We have chaos to order. Everyone's dead. So the order has been brought, right? Like Ruby's whole goal has been achieved, but we do not have a traditional structure aside from that 50% midpoint and the 98% reveal that, we have learned that at 94% that Jules was working with Ruby. So that's your final twist. But then we learn at 95 and like through the epilogue that Jules killed Ben. And so that's like, it's like looking back at the climactic scene, which maybe could be the climactic scene actually where she's facing the villain, but we don't actually see it until after. You know what I mean?
Well, we see her in the moment when he's coming at her, right? And then, but we're left hanging in that we don't know what
We
happened.
don't know what
Oh,
happened.
we get to that, and then it's like, here's how the rest of it went down. So
Right.
it's a cliffhanger rather than sort of a resolution in that moment.
Right, which breaks all the rules. So, here's an example, dear reader, about how someone has done something and it worked really, really well. And this is why writing is so much fun. It's like understand what the expectations are. It's 50% midpoint twist. climactic aha, climactic scene, conquer, villain, and then 98% something new comes to light. All that is achieved. It's just that we learn about the climactic scene after the fact, and we don't actually have anyone conquering anyone. We don't understand what actually went down, but it's all still there. It's just told in a different order. And
Yeah, and
just
I think too, I would say that because she, like, there is that action
yeah,
of
yeah.
the confrontation between Jules and Ben, and she leaves it on the cliffhanger that that's probably why we don't feel like, uh, like that it was, we're not
Yeah.
disappointed by not getting what we would normally expect, because I think we also know she's not just going to leave us here. She's not going to tell us what
Yeah, there's
happened,
still like 15% of
right?
the book left.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's a masterful way of looking at this, and it's, it just doesn't follow all of the constructs that you and I talk about all the time, but I think it works beautifully, and I just adored this book. I thought it was
oh
great.
yeah, it was great. It was
Yeah.
great. I think I've said to you, and a few other people, like, this is something that I can consider a mentor text for what I'm
Mm,
working on. And that's like, that's such a beautiful thing when you can look at, you have such a master class in like how you can do
yes,
these things well. For me, since that's how I learn in many ways, like just to be able to
totally.
have this as that mentor text, I think is fantastic. So I was thrilled, haha, that you wanted to do this book. Um, I actually have one more question for
Yeah.
you, something we didn't talk about, and then of course anything else that you want to talk about. But I thought it was really interesting. We do find out what happened to the original Ruby, but when right before, or maybe not right before, at some point before we did find out, I thought to myself, I wonder if we're going to find out what happened to her. And then I had the most interesting to me reaction, which was like, if, because I asked myself the question, if I don't find out, am I going to be mad at Rachel Hawkins for like not telling me what
Yeah.
happened to her? And I was like, I don't think I am. I think she's done such a good job of satisfying all my other expectations
Ah,
around this, and resolving so many of these story things, that I think she didn't, but she could have left that open ended. And I think that speaks too to like what a great job she did everywhere else, that I wouldn't have been mad at her. I'm glad she told us what happened, but I would not have been mad if she didn't. So
yeah. What an interesting
what is that at
observation.
all?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in that way, to be honest. Like, it's just the genre expectations are for thriller, and this is a straight thriller. It's technically a domestic because we're dealing with like internal family, but it's a thriller. Like, we don't know we know that there's a villain. We understand that, like, we think Ruby's pulling the strings, but we're not really sure. And there's like this baby napping, like that's a mystery. And the story question I would think is like, is Cam going to get his inheritance? Kind of, because there's so much pushback on it. And
Yeah,
also, is Ruby who she says she is? And so, yeah, I think I just expected her to answer it because I have such strong genre expectations for this genre. If she hadn't, you're right, though. I wouldn't have been particularly disappointed. I would have been like, oh, okay. Like, that tracks. But we kind of had to know it because Jules is related. Jules is from that line. And so, or am I misremembering? Oh, I'm misremembering. Tell me what you remember.
well, she is actually, so, or maybe I misread this, because this does happen where I make assumptions and then somebody else is like, well, I'm
Okay.
sorry, why did you think that? I'm like, oh shit, did I miss something? um, Jules is related to, not original Ruby. Jules is related to stolen Ruby,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But Stolen Ruby, okay. Ruby is actually the daughter of the other family, right? She's the Darnell daughter.
Parnell, thank you. Yes, I couldn't
Yep.
remember that name.
And
Yeah.
then, but they swapped, right? That it's not like the original Ruby died, or did she?
No, the original Ruby was taken by the nanny,
Was
wasn't she?
taken, right? Yes, yes, yes. That's what it was. That's what it
Yeah.
was. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the original Ruby was taken by the nanny, and then Jules is related to the original Ruby, right?
She
Sorry,
was,
Rachel Hawkins.
oh my gosh. No, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right.
I'm not
It's
positive. I'm not
myself.
positive. If any readers want to comment on this video and let us know where we're getting this wrong, I welcome it. I am human and I err.
No, in these situations, I think I've said to you personally before, but all our watchers and readers out there, I have a terrible memory, like the worst memory. And so I did not write this down. And I really
Okay,
should have.
so I
I trust
haven't.
you, Sam, over me for sure.
Okay, so I have a note that says Linda was Claire Darnell's daughter. Caitlin Julianne Darnell equals Jules. And so Claire Darnell was the family.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yes.
And then Ruby McTavish, as we know her, was taken from that family and then put in place of the original Ruby McTavish.
Right.
I don't remember what happened to the original Ruby McTavish.
She was taken by the nanny.
By the nanny. And so she's just off and she died. Do we know what happened to her?
She died. I mean, I think she like lived a fine life and she died. Like
Okay.
it was almost, that's why I was like, I don't know like if I would have cared. And I was glad that she wrapped up that thread. I think it's
Yeah.
satisfying that we know what happened to her, but it could have just been probably because she set up the woods as being so menacing in such a great way.
Yes. Yes.
It really could have
That's
been
totally
that
why I thought that.
little baby Ruby just disappeared into the woods and was eaten by a bear, and like no one would ever know. And I think like the very first article we read is about how people go missing and
Yes.
never turn up.
That's
that's
totally, yeah.
why I would have been like, oh, I probably would have just chalked it up to that and found it good.
But I wonder if that's part of the Outside Magazine hint at the beginning, is to make us think,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And the fact that you and I are not 100% sure on what actually happened. Like I've read this book twice now and I still can't tell you for sure. And so that's a testament to how twisty it is too. And like twisty in the way that there's just a lot to keep track of. And I would actually like to see Rachel Hawkins' board of like how she plotted this and like
Oh
all the
man.
connections, right? Because you've got multiple timelines, you've got multiple like narratives looking at things like this.
I'm
It's really
picturing the
cool.
Always Sunny meme, with Charlie and his board of strings everywhere, because that is kind of what it feels like. There's so
Yeah.
many things and I think it's deceptively because it has a small core cast of characters.
Yeah.
I think it feels deceptively simple, and when you pick it apart the way you and I have just done, I mean, I realized before, but like you realize how carefully crafted it all is,
Yes.
how
Yes.
meticulously you have to put all of this together, or it just wouldn't work.
It just falls apart. Like we have to understand the motivations of all these people, and like the Darnells needed money, so they sold their child. It just that explains that whole thing. But then look at the consequences, like the fallout consequences of that. And
Yeah, and the decision too, if I'm remembering correctly, it was the decision of the father and not the mother. And he was made a promise, like they arrested him because he kidnapped Ruby.
right.
But he was made promises of like, we're gonna arrest you because like we need to sell the story to everybody, but you'll be let out because I'll like pull some strings.
Yeah.
And the string that was pulled was actually him getting murdered as he's supposedly escaping prison. And then you find out later, like the mother never agreed to it, but it was 1943.
Yeah.
The father could do what he wanted to do, and the mother, never recovered from that. It seems like the whole family kind of never recovered in some ways.
Yeah. And then didn't accept the help when Ruby came to offer it, which is how Jules learns of all this. And so this all happens beneath the surface of the story, right? Like the reader doesn't know any of this until it's revealed at the very end, but Rachel Hawkins had to think about all of this and figure it out before she was able to actually write the story in the way that it's presented.
Yep.
And
and make it all believable, and that we would, when we did read what she has put out to us as like, here are all the ways the braids like came together, that there were many where it was just like, oh, that wouldn't happen, or like, I'm not buying that, to your motivations and the cause and effect of all of it. It all works. The logic is all there.
It's wonderful. Well done, Rachel Hawkins.
Yeah, well done, Rachel Hawkins. Thank you for creating this wonderful mentor text.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Thank you for creating this art. I absolutely adored it. So with that, I think we should sign off with, a final just thank you for listening, people. We really appreciate it. We love nerding out about this stuff, and breaking apart fillers to figure out how they did it is probably my favorite activity. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for, and I want to throw in our always forever reminder too, that please know, as Sam has alluded to, this did not happen in a first draft. Like, this is not, don't compare this to your work in progress. Like, this was a lot of meticulous time and effort and thoughts. And I don't know how many drafts, but I'm sure
Yeah.
Rachel could tell you this did not spring fully formed from her head. There's a lot of work that went into that. So learn from it as we
Yeah.
do, and take that away from all this, but don't expect your work in progress is going to be this right at the start. So
Great reminder. And, if you want to come to our retreats, shadowsandsecretsretreats.com. We are, I don't know exactly when this is going to be released, but we are going to be doing them every year. If you sign up for our email list, you'll get access to, we do monthly webinars on craft talks, and then we also are doing these deep dives. And so if you go to the website, you can sign up. We never spam. We never sell your stuff. You can unsubscribe anytime. We're not precious about it. We just want to put this out into the world, and we're here to support and lift up and love the MTS genre. So thank you for being here.
thank you, Sam, and thank you everybody for being here. While I still have electricity, let's sign off.